Welcome back to episode 14 of Injustice for All with Judge Joe Brown. And today we're going to be talking about Hollywood freaks, Harvey Weinstein and P. Diddy. Harvey Weinstein is in the middle of his retrial in New York City. And Diddy does have some new updates with his trial. But I want to start off with Harvey Weinstein and his situation. So Harvey Weinstein hashtag Me Too trial retrial. What to know as movie mogul returns to the courtroom. So now they're in the middle of picking of jury selection in a retrial in a New York City court. And what is Harvey Weinstein charged with? Weinstein retrial will cover two charges of assault, one of rape stemming from allegations by three different women, two who allege Weinstein forcibly performed oral sex in 2006, and one who alleges he raped her in 2013. Unlike the 2020 case, the second assault charge stems from the allegations of an unnamed woman who was not part of the first trial. The other two charges are related to accusers Mimi, Miriam Haley, and Jessica Mann, whose allegations in the first trial were part of the charges of which Weinstein was convicted. Weinstein is currently housed in Rikers Island in New York City. He returned to New York in 2023 after having been extradited to California to face charges in his other sex crimes convictions. He is pleading guilty in this retrial. He's also been criticized of the conditions at Rikers Island and Bellevue Hospital staff after allegedly failing to provide proper medical care while he was in custody. Right now, Weinstein is battling cancer, well, leukemia, which is a bone marrow cancer. He has high blood pressure. He is a diabetic, and he's suffering from coronary artery disease. And his lawyers are suing Rikers Island for um, what would you call it? Dangerous and unhealthy living conditions and lack of quality health care. So he would not be required to testify in this defense.
You doesn't have to. Fifth Amendment.
So, what are your thoughts, though, on this whole Harvey Weinstein situation? Because we really never spoke about.
Well, they're trying him in New York, just like they're trying Diddy in New York, and the events complained of, for the most part, happened on the opposite coast. So, that alarms me. Also, the consolidation of all of these accusations into one, that is very alarming. And though it is not repugnant to the law, it isn't in the spirit of the law. And that risk convicting somebody for alleged proclivity rather than for any actual specific criminality. So I've had to cope with that as a criminal trial lawyer, defense lawyer, and also as a criminal court judge. And it, let's just say, is not conducive to justice when you lump a whole bunch of accusations involving many different situations that don't have a direct connection, like Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, committed in sequence. There's a high probability that injustice will occur. And that's one of the things that's going to be needing appellate resolution at some point. But that said, let's see what the outcome's going to be. And they ought to put that man in a hospital situation until he gets stabilized anyway.
Well, it says here The verdict was a partial win for the prosecution. Weinstein escaped the two most serious charges of predatory or sexual assault, plus one charge of rape in the first degree, which spared him the possibility of a sentence that included life in prison. Besides the two women, Mann and Hellie, Weinstein's trial also featured testimony from four other accusers who claimed Weinstein sexually assaulted them in New York or California as far back as 1993 and as recently as 2013.
Now that sets up error on behalf of the prosecution and the court when you start allowing proof of other crimes. You start skating on some very thin ice, and generally, proof of other crimes is potentially admissible to show intent, identity, or basically to establish presence. And in this case, there's no question as to what his identity is. There's no question about the presence there, since the defense seems predicated on not so much a denial that events happened, but the nature of the events. So there's no real purpose that I can see that's served by allowing proof of other crimes that is not indicative of the prejudicial value far exceeding the the prejudicial effect far exceeding the probative value. In other words, what's the value as it goes to necessities to prove the case versus it's gratuitous and it just is very prejudicial to a jury and a defendant. Now, I know people saying, well, he's no good, this, that, and the other, but most of the laws that America relies upon are established through no good people. You have a right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used. Okay, that's called, that's the slate of Miranda rights. And Miranda, back in 1962, was not a good guy. He was not a nice person. But things that ordinary Americans rely upon, they come out of Miranda and people like that. And matter of fact, Miranda died later at the hands of some of his acquaintances. So, or somebody that didn't like him, depending upon how you look at it.
Right.
But we have to understand the law is the law and justice is blind. She can't see who you are. And who you are is supposed to have absolutely nothing to do with the outcome, other than perhaps if you are a person of good and sterling character, that might have a lot to do with credibility. When you're going to say, jury, who is most credible in terms of their presentation, this side or this side? Or if this other side, under Miranda and under the Fifth Amendment, which is what Miranda deals with, doesn't have any obligation to say anything at all. It's just, does this side prove to you beyond a reasonable doubt that this other side did it? And when you say reasonable doubt, it doesn't mean you believe he did it. It means even if you believe he did it, does it exclude any other reasonable possibility? I wrote the charge for Tennessee. It stayed on the books for almost 30 years as the standard pattern charge on reasonable doubt. But it is what it is.
So let's go to Hollywood because, this man is what, 75, 73? He's old. So life in prison is.
Pardon?
I'm sorry. I don't know. I don't look at you at that age. So, and I think, okay, I'm looking at him. He has all these ailments and he's already of a certain age, right? So let me take that back. Let me take the old back. He's a man of a certain age and he has some severe ill. He has cancer, but he has bone marrow. On top of that, he's a diabetic. So with all that, life in prison is not 20 years for him.
Few years.
Yes, but
Look at the bright side. He'd get paid for medical care, such little and inadequate as it may be.
well, he is suing. He filed a $5 million lawsuit against New York City, alleging inhumane conditions at Rikers Island, where he is serving time for his sexual assault and rape charges. And he is describing it as a gulag, citing poor medical care. Now, a lot of people wouldn't feel sorry for him because of the alleged accusations throughout the decades. And I kind of want to swing it back to Hollywood with all their freaky, demonic, you know, nasty sexual behavior. And okay, it's been the last 3-4 years that this man has been put under a microscope, and he stepped down from his movie production company that him and his brother were running. Is it a little too late? Because Hollywood, you allow this behavior to go on for decades.
That kind of behavior is rampant in Hollywood. Hollywood is a sick place filled with sick fantasies perpetrated by sick people who have very little life experience for the most part, who are paradoxically conditioning and acculturating the American public in what life's supposed to be about. So just imagine that you released somebody from a mental institution and you say, hey, you go over there and I want you to show these people how to be normal. You're not going to get it. And the other thing is, for the last 120 some years, the movies and then television became the instrument that youth all over the planet Earth relied upon to be trendy in how they behaved.
Right.
They silent stars, and they had the talkies, and, young kids, white and black, modeled themselves after the early Western stars, and then John Wayne and Clint Eastwood and such like, and it's gone on into the present. So you program somebody with somebody else's sickness, you're gonna get a ailing society.
And that's exactly what Hollywood is still. So even with
It's worse now than it ever has been because the hypocrisy is extreme, and it's now fashionable. I imagine, I suspect that since soap operas got dashed to the curb by the judge shows, that there's still that urge to be soap operish in Hollywood, that National Enquirer, Globe, and Star front page BS headline out of the tabloids, and that gets manifested in a supercharged fashion by what Hollywood is doing now.
So they have Hollywood. Hollywood have a lot of dark secrets. Do you know any of the dark secrets?
Oh yes, my headquarters. They remodeled my headquarters. It is over where KTLA Channel 5 is right now. And they shoot Judge Judy, well, they used to shoot Judge Judy there, me, Maybelline Ephraim with Divorce Court and some other stuff. And when they remodeled my headquarters and they took down the sheetrock, we found these staircases that went down to subterranean tunnels. And we followed the tunnels and we looked at the diagrams and we'd get to these staircases. And when we looked at the old layouts, they were bungalows that were over these staircases. And what was going on was when you went down there, they had these old faded yellow signs there, Theta Bara. So, in other words, Cecil B. DeMille was the famous director, and that's who had that office. So, he was going down to visit the starlets, Theta Bara, and she was one that was known for her nude or semi-nude scenes in the silent movies, and Marlene Dietrich, and so on and so forth. So we were looking at him, wow, this guy must have been doing a hell of a casting couch circuit. And if you look at anybody ever watch a Shirley Temple movie when she was
Yeah.
and she had little short dresses and she'd be sitting on this old guy's lap with a long beard and he'd be grinning. Do you know what her agency's name was?
I forgot you.
No, kitty porn.
Kitty, as in Kiddie, porn, PORN.
Yeah, exactly. That was the name of her child agency, kitty porn.
And did the porn mean what the porn means?
Exactly.
So
Remember
why?
that
Well,
scene
okay, so
in
here's the
Godfather?
question.
Remember that scene in Godfather 1? I have it from those who were involved in running Hollywood way back when. They say that was very realistic. Remember when that horse's head was in the bed and they were trying to get the Frank Sinatra stand in to be accepted as a star, and the Godfather's guys were parked out in front of the director's mansion, and that mother dropped that little girl off, and then when she picked her up in the morning, she was hobbling and could hardly walk. And they were looking at each other like, wow, that's for real. It's been going on for years.
Um, but why did Shirley Temple, mother or father or parents, allow her to be?
Lots of money. Why do parents take their little 2-year-old girls to ice skating and gymnastics, and the poor things don't get a childhood because from 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, all the way up to 10, 11, and 12, 13, when they go to the Olympics, they've had no life because 4, 5, 6 days out of the week, they're spending multiple hours in somebody's gym or facility trying to perfect gymnastics or swimming or such like. And why would a mother do that to a child, to deprive them of a childhood? See, it's done.
What is the story behind Shirley Temple? Do you know?
I don't know. She wound up being, she married somebody and it became Shirley Temple Black. And she wound up being the American ambassador to an African country. I think it was under the Reagan administration.
Well, getting back to Hollywood, just real quick. So that staircase, I'm pretty sure there were many other staircases behind a whole bunch of other studio production. Do you think that the reason why they had those staircase slash tunnels was to traffic children?
No, it was just the big director with a lot of money and nobody to tell on him was making booty calls during the middle of the day to the starlets of the time, and they were doing the casting couch thing to make sure they worked.
Well,
Casting couch still goes on in Hollywood. It's heavy, but it tends to be boy on boy and girl on girl rather than boy girl.
so basically, there are still dozens of Harvey Weinsteins working in Hollywood right now.
Most probably.
So, in conclusion, here, just swinging back to the Hollywood freaks, right? Quick story though. Can you give me a quick story of Mulholland Drive? Because that's a story behind that, right? Which more of a dark tale of Hollywood freaks.
Oh, Mulholland Drive is,
Mulholland Drive. Oh,
yeah,
quick.
it's an interesting movie, and it kind of captures what LAPD was like when I was growing up in Los Angeles. Hollywood Insider also does the same thing too, and it deals with the corruption that was manifest in Los Angeles with the police department for a long time and the Gestapo like tactics that they routinely used to do what they did.
Well, who was Mulholland?
Mulholland was an industrialist who developed the farmland and the agricultural industry in California and set up irrigation. So Mulholland is Mulholland Drive, which is a famous boulevard that drives through the semi-rural area of the mountains between central LA and the valley in LA. And that's where one of the BLM founders bought this mansion, Mulholland Drive area. I used to have to drive through it quite often.
Well, is Mulholland? Would you say the person Mulholland? Would you consider him part of that Hollywood freaky?
No, he had nothing to do with Hollywood. That was back in the 19th century, late 19th century. He set Los Angeles up for being what it was by developing the agricultural industry right outside of Los Angeles. And he got that whole San Fernando Valley and all that area irrigated. And when you drive through California, you'll see these concreted river channels that he's somewhat responsible for. So Mulholland was a person, late 19th century, that set up the agricultural industry in Southern California, became a very rich man. And they had like I said, it was a road, a drive, Mulholland Drive, that goes through a very exclusive area. When you get to Los Angeles and you land at the airport, you can see to your north some mountains. Mulholland Drive goes lengthwise through those mountains. And there are a lot of exclusive properties up there. When you get past Mulholland Drive, it drops off into the San Fernando Valley, Valley Girl fame. And that's part of Los Angeles, and they vote in the mayor's election, and LAPD patrols out there. So
it's like the man Mulholland that Mulholland Drive is named after. He wasn't into the Hollywood freaky stuff. However, a lot of prominent Hollywood execs and actors and actresses live along Mulholland Drive, where maybe a lot of the freaky, nasty stuff were taking place.
It's in the Hollywood Hills.
Right. The Hollywood Hills of freaks. All right. So thank you, everybody, for tuning in.
Freaks come out at night.
Right.
On my show.
So
that was a song. That's not reality,
Well, thank you, everybody, for tuning in to episode 14 of Injustice for All. And make sure you like, share this video, and subscribe to the channel and comment below. And we'll see you in the next video. Bye.